Well, hey friends, welcome to Cinematic Scripture, where I help Christians move from fragmented faith to story-shaped clarity so you can see the gospel everywhere and share it naturally. I'm your host, Kyle Harless. Let's roll film. Alright, so by now I hope you're starting to see that film is more than entertainment. Whether it's mainstream or indie, Hollywood or foreign, feature-length or short film, live action or animated, it really doesn't matter. Film has become one of the main ways people make sense of the world. It's where meaning is explored, identity is negotiated, and worldview is formed. Often, even without us realizing it. I think Jesus understood something that we often forget. We learn our deepest truths through stories. Stories are how we make sense of our lives. They cause us to ask, who am I? Am I like Atticus Finch, standing up for what's right, even when it costs me? Am I like Steve Rogers, choosing courage when fear feels easier? Am I like Michael Corleone, slowly becoming someone I was never meant to be? Am I like Elsa, pushing people away because I'm afraid of what's inside of me? Or am I like Joy, trying to control everything so I don't have to feel what hurts? See, stories, they shape us. Stories are also how we understand good and evil. Rebel versus Empire. Sarah Connor versus the Terminator. Buzz and Woody versus Sid. Evil queens, wicked stepmothers, light versus dark, and hobbits versus Mordor. They shape how we see good and evil. Stories are also how we imagine what's possible. We believe that a man can fly, that you can change your stars, that joy and fulfillment are out there, that anyone, no matter where they come from, can change, can matter, and can make a difference. Because stories shape us, so how we watch matters. Okay, so when we watch passively, we miss what's actually happening beneath the surface. We miss the themes shaping our imagination. We miss the values being normalized, and we miss the worldview that is being rehearsed. And we miss the way that film taps into the deepest parts of us, our fears, our longings, our wounds, and our hopes. Just think about this. Citizen Kane shows us a man who can't love unless he's in control. Vertigo shows us how obsession can warp identity. Saving Private Ryan forces us to wrestle with sacrifice and the cost of life. Do the Right Thing confronts us with justice, anger, and community. In Inception, it asks us whether we can trust our own perception of truth or not. See, film exposes the full range of human experiences, the virtues and the vices. Film explores faith, hope, love, justice, mercy, but it also explores pride, greed, envy, anger, lust, gluttony, and sloth. And friends, here is the key. When a film elevates virtue, Christ is present through it. And when a film normalizes vice, then we need to pay attention. Not to condemn the film, but to understand what it's saying. Because film always says something. Okay, so how do we move from passive watching to spiritual discernment? How do we see film through the lens of faith? There is a way to do this, a way to watch that's intentional, wise, and spiritually awake. This is not about becoming a film critic. It's not about hunting for hidden messages. This is about learning to ask better questions of the stories that we love. Questions like, what kind of world is this story inviting me into? Questions like, what is this story really about beneath the plot? Questions like, what does this story say is true about being human? Where do I see echoes of the gospel or distortions of it in this story? See, when you and I start to ask those kinds of questions, film stops being just a movie and it starts becoming a place of encounter, a place of conversation. We begin to notice stories that rehearse mercy, like Les Mis, or stories that wrestle with freedom and sacrifice, like Braveheart, or stories that explore responsibility and flourishing, like A Beautiful Mind. Now, these are not Christian films, so to speak, but they are human films. And we have to remember that as humans, we are made in the image of God, which means that every story we create, every creative endeavor, it either echoes something true or distorts something true, because we are made in the image of a creator. So we either echo what's true or we distort what's true. And listen, if you're like, man, I don't even know how to discern that, but you want to learn how to do that, you want to move from just watching passively to spiritual discernment, to practice it, friends, then hear me out. I want to invite you to See the Story of 5-Day Awakening, where over a live 5-day experience, I give you a 3-step lens to be able to see scripture, film in your own life in a new way, not through information, but through a clearer lens, so we can dialogue with faith in film. And you can learn more about that at cinematicscripture.com. Okay, so we know from experience that anytime we try and change something in our life, we face resistance. It happens all the time. And when we try to watch film differently, there's no exception to that. Because I think there's a part of us that says, "Hey, come on, man, it's just a movie. I don't want to think about that right now. I don't want to, I'm tired. I just want to relax." And honestly, I think that's so understandable. Like, life is heavy and there's times where we just want to break. We don't want a worldview seminar. But hear me on this. Engaging with story doesn't mean we actually stop enjoying it. I would argue it actually allows us to enjoy it more because it puts us in conversation with the film, to hear what it's saying, to hear what its ache is, and to hear what it's longing for. So it actually allows us to enjoy it more deeply. And then I think there's also the resistance of the culture around us, where movies are just marketed as escape. Streaming services are built to just keep us binging, numbing, and scrolling, right? Everything is designed to help us turn our brains off, not to actually wake our spirits up. But as believers, we are called to be so different. Paul tells us in Romans not to conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Okay, so that doesn't mean that we never relax, but it does mean that we don't live numb. Sometimes the most countercultural thing we can do when it comes to watching film is to do this. Pick one story, one film, give it our full attention, let it move us, and then after we watch it, ask, what was this story really saying? Not to just watch it and move on. Then there's this relational resistance where a lot of people only know how to talk about movies in certain terms. Was it clean? Was it funny? Was it actually worth the ticket? And so we learn to keep these deeper questions to ourselves. Maybe we watch a film and it actually wrestles with us, it destroys us, or it challenges us, but we keep it to ourselves, but we don't have anyone around us to communicate that with. But underneath all of that, there is something even deeper that we're facing. I think if we don't believe that our story matters, that we will escape into someone else's story. If we don't think our lives have meaning, we'll borrow meaning from the screen. And if we don't know how to name our desires, our wounds, our longings, we will let movies name them for us. And it's not because we're weak, but it's because we're human. Sometimes we just don't have words for what we're trying to say. And we have to be able to begin to speak again. So to say these deeper thoughts out loud about questions, these deeper questions that we bury, they help us because stories are powerful. Okay, I'm not saying don't watch a story. I'm saying that the language that stories are powerful because they give us the language to know what to say. They give us the names of the emotions we're feeling, and they give us clarity when we don't know how to find clarity. And Scripture actually calls us not to avoid stories, but to wake up and see, to watch things with discernment, to watch with attention, to watch with a renewed mind. See, what we're talking about here, seeing film through the lens of faith, is not about ruining movies. It's actually about recovering sight so that the stories we love don't replace our own, but to help us live our lives with more honesty, with more courage, and with more faith. There are times where we are going through things and we don't know how to name what we're walking through, and we watch a film or a TV show, we hear a story that just so speaks to the core of who we are because of what we're walking through, because of the valley that we're in. And so these stories, they give words to what we're feeling, but only if we pay attention. And when we pay attention, we actually enter a space for conversation into where God can speak through what we're watching. Or we can just ignore it, move on, and treat it as just entertainment. The choice is ours. Okay, so just imagine with me what would shift if we as Christians embrace this way of watching. I imagine it would look like families watching films together and talking about the worldview beneath the plot. It would be churches using films as modern parables to help disciple imagination. It would be individuals learning to see beauty in truth and brokenness with clarity. And film would become a classroom for spiritual formation. A movie like Hugo could teach us purpose. Tender Mercies would teach us gratitude. Places in the Heart teaching us forgiveness and reconciliation. Do the Right Thing teaching us justice and community. And Inception teaching us truth and deception. See, movies matter because movies can help us grieve, can help us laugh, can help us imagine, can help us question, and can help us hope. They open worlds. They expose dark corners. They shine the light on our lives because film does not just entertain us, friends, it forms us. And when we watch through the lens of faith, film becomes a partner in our discipleship transformation. All right, so definitely a little shorter of an episode today, but that's okay, right? Because if something that I shared with you stirred in you in this journey of this episode with me, if you felt the ache for clarity, for coherence, for a faith that really feels awake and alive, friends, you are not alone. And I want to invite you into See the Story of 5-Day Awakening. This is a live 5-day experience where you will learn a simple, powerful way of seeing that helps scripture, film, and your own life finally make sense. It's a convergence point of faith and film and dialogue and how it affects our lives when we watch it through a biblical worldview lens. This is not about more Christian content. It is absolutely about a new way of seeing, a new way to see story. It's a way that ignites our imagination, our faith, and it helps our lives finally fit together. And if you are sensing that pull towards awakening, towards clarity, towards a story-shaped life, then See the Story of 5-Day Awakening is your next step. You can join the next one at cinematicscripture.com. Until next time, I'm Kyle. Watch attentively, reflect spiritually, and lead from story. Have a blessed day.